The Life of a Showgirl. I've put on my most sparkly showgirl top, like a modern feminist story, and the iconic mother of life, friends to lovers. Sorry, Donald, but do you own a mirror? Everything's smoke and mirrors. Good for her. We're weaving these themes together. That's just showbiz, baby. Hi everyone, welcome or welcome back to another video. I'm Ray, What Ray Reads. Follow me on Instagram and follow me on TikTok because why not? Thanks for being here and clicking on the video today. If you did click on the video, then you obviously know our Lord and Saviour Taylor Swift, praise be, has just announced that she's releasing a new album on October 3rd.
On October 3rd? He asked me what day it was.
It's October 3rd.
Formerly known as Mean Girls Day. So obviously I'm living, I'm breathing, it's about to become my new personality. So with that being said, I've put on my most sparkly showgirl top and I wanted to create a reading list or some homework, if you will, for books that you can read leading up to the release of The Life of a Showgirl. And obviously we've only got the track list and what Taylor's said about the album to go off. So I've used bits and pieces and created a bit of a theme of topics or things that I think she'll write or sing about on the album. So I've looked into the whispers, the clues, the Easter eggs and the theories, and then I've also sprinkled in my own interpretation or wish list song on the album of what I think we're going to see on the album, and out of that I've created a reading list. So just to get you caught up if you're not aware, we'll just have a little look of the overview and themes of what people have been saying and what we're expecting to see on the album. So first things first, we're going to have an album of bangers. I'll be getting down. I personally think it's going to be a look at fame and the curtain's going to be pulled back on the realities of the highs and lows of fame while she's been on the Eras tour. What was going on behind the scenes at that point in her life, because we know that she wrote it and was flying to Sweden to work on it with Max Martin and Shellback, who did 1989 and Reputation. So as I said, bangers. I think following themes that she's touched on The Tortured Poets, where she wrote about doomed relationships and how her personal life and relationships is impacted by media and fan scrutiny, plus the expectation that fans have of her. And we've seen these themes discussed on songs like I Hate It Here, But Daddy I Love Him, How Did It End? And in those songs she also discusses how she escapes through her imagination, and that's what makes her such a fantastic writer. But with the title alone, The Life of a Showgirl, we know it's going to be theatrical, we know it's going to be, that's just showbiz, baby. And I think we'll see a continuation, not necessarily in sound but in theme, of I Can Do It With a Broken Heart, which was very showgirl musical inspired. Obviously that song's tongue-in-cheek, but it's about how she's feeling up on stage every night performing whilst also being broken-hearted. Flips the narrative on how we as fans perceive her as a performer and how she's truly feeling. So I think these themes of reality versus assumption, the highs and lows, new relationships, the end of relationships, and what we don't see of the showgirls behind the scenes, this is all things that I assume we're going to see on the album. So with that in mind, this is what I've used as a bit of a jumping off point. So let's get into some books that I think you should read in preparation or just because you want to for Taylor Swift's The Life of a Showgirl.
'Cause I can do it with a broken heart.
So the first book I've selected is Ophelia by Lisa M. Klein. So I could have simply said Hamlet, because if you didn't know, Ophelia is a character from Hamlet. But we all know Hamlet is a bit difficult word-wise to get into, and most of us know it from English class, or if you were me, you didn't know it from English class because you were too busy staring out the window daydreaming. So here's a bit of an overview of Ophelia. She's a character in William Shakespeare's Hamlet, and the tragedy of Ophelia is that she's driven to madness when her father is murdered by her lover, and she dies very young, suffering from grief and madness. Some people might say a mad woman. In an article on Medium, Ophelia is described as being viewed in the story of Hamlet of either the epitome of virginal innocence or as a temptress, weaponising her sexual allure to manipulate Hamlet. Yet when probed deeper, Ophelia emerges as neither an angel nor a seductress, but as a victim of patriarchy. Spoiling the party again. A motherless young woman continually exploited and discarded by men in control. And you can sort of see how female pop stars deal with similar things. A lot of the executives and people in power in the music industry are men. So I think Taylor will probably touch on those in this song. Maybe the pressures of being a young female star in the music business from a very young age, along with society's image of her as being a man-eater or temptress, sexist, and only using the men in her life and relationships as inspiration for her songs. As I also mentioned, Ophelia is spoken at and about by the men around her, and she's merely a prop in their story arc, and she's often seen as the representation of female powerlessness, whereas I think Taylor will use this to flip the narrative and shift the power dynamics, or I hope. So that's why I chose Ophelia by Lisa M. Klein, because this is a reimagining and a retelling of Hamlet, which shifts the perspective to Ophelia's, and she's the centre of the story and we're seeing things through her eyes. In this retelling, Ophelia isn't merely a side quest or someone to be used as a pawn. She's headstrong and outspoken, and even though there's still a love story at the centre of the book between Hamlet and Ophelia, Ophelia is her own person and has wants and desires, and she still strikes out alone, even while the madness and violence ruptures around her. I've never read Shakespeare. It seems a bit hard to digest, if you will. Tell me if I'm wrong. But I have heard it's hard to engage with because of the language. So I think for people who may be a bit intimidated by getting into it, or they just don't feel it'll work for them, this is a great place to start. Obviously, for extra credit, you're welcome to read Hamlet. The next book is The Water Cure by Sophie Mackintosh. Oh, Rachel, why did you pick this book? She's in a bath. The album cover is her in the water cure. I'm linking them together. This is a dystopian story, one that I've recommended a lot because I absolutely loved it, and it follows three sisters who are raised in isolation by their parents on an island, and they're told from a young age of the horrors and the dangers that are out there and that they need to be wary of. When one day their father goes out and never returns and unknown men appear on the island, the women have to question their instincts, their desires, and who they can trust, even amongst themselves. This book questions gendered dynamics, patriarchal oppression, and the psychological impact of being isolated and removed from reality, all against the backdrop of feminism and female identity. And as Taylor's the most famous woman on the planet, and someone who's written a lot about fame and her perception by fans and the media, speculation, but also how she's feeling behind the scenes. We see this on Nothing New, Blank Space, I Know Places, etc, etc. I think this book will be a great accompaniment to the themes that we see in her work, but I think we may see in the new album. And plus, we've got the water symbolisation, and I watched Ali Sheehan's video, who's basically like the resident Taylor Swift YouTube account that I watch, and she mentioned in her video that water's seen as like a feminine symbol, so we're weaving these themes together, or the flowing, as you'd say, with water. The next book is inspired by the song title Elizabeth Taylor, and this isn't the first time Taylor's referenced Elizabeth Taylor. Did we all listen to Ready for It when she said Burton to this Taylor? Taylor Swift seems to have a fascination with Elizabeth Taylor due to her high-profile status as a man-eater, something that Taylor's experienced herself. Everyone's always discussing her love life, acting as if her dating habits are any different from that of regular 20 and 30-year-olds, but she's more highly scrutinised because, one, she's famous, and two, she's a woman.
She's got a point.
As Little Kim said in the Christina Aguilera song Can't Hold Us Down.
Here's something I just can't understand. If a guy have three girls, then he's the man. If a girl do the same, then she's a whore.
The math ain't mathin', people. But similar to Taylor, Elizabeth Taylor's love life was highly scandalised and a spectacle. She was famously married 8 times to 7 different men. Good for her.
Good for her.
And I think Taylor, as I mentioned, related to this in the way that she's been highly scrutinised in her dating life. And the speculation from the tabloids and fans almost overshadows their work and talent. So the book that I've chosen for this theme is Mary Ann by Daphne du Maurier. This is one of Daphne du Maurier's lesser known books. I haven't read it yet, but I was kindly sent it, and it sounds like a modern feminist story set in Regency London, written in 1954, but as I mentioned, set in Regency London. We follow a woman who isn't following society's traditions or expectations. She's considered a temptress or uncouth. She becomes the mistress of the Duke of York, and apparently this story was inspired by du Maurier's own great-great-grandmother, who had a similar relationship with a royal. And in the story, the main character uses her sexuality and power to rise in society's social order. She's climbing that ladder. Good for her. What follows is scandal and corruption in high society England, and it shines a light on the spectacle in this aspect of society and what we don't see that's happening behind the curtain. I think this really seems to capture elements of the idea of fame and power versus the daily reality. You hear a lot of people in the entertainment business claim everything's smoke and mirrors, and I think that that's what this book seems to touch on, and how you have to kind of play the game, if you will, especially as a woman. But I think this is how Elizabeth Taylor was treated, and probably how she felt behind the scenes, how her love life and relationships and celebrity image overshadowed her work. I believe this will probably be a fear that Taylor at times feels, especially now that she's in a really high profile relationship. But if you didn't want to read that, you could also read Furious Love, Elizabeth Taylor, Richard Burton and The Marriage of the Century by Sam Kashner and Nancy Schoeberger. This will dive deeper into that tumultuous relationship of Richard Burton and Elizabeth Taylor. The next book is Dancers by Nicole Cuffy. This is the story of the pressures of performance and achieving your dreams, and the lengths that artists will go to gain perfection and achieve success. We follow a young black ballerina who reaches the height of success as the first black principal dancer at the New York City Ballet. She instantly rises to celebrity status, and the quick success leaves her questioning if she belongs, what she's left behind, what's at stake, and if she's really got what it takes to succeed. This book's said to centre women, art and power, and I picked this book because I think it shines a light on striving to make it and the realities and pressures, expectations that follow with that quick rise to fame. Taylor did mention that it wasn't until the Eras tour that she really looked around and essentially realised that she'd made it. So I think maybe that's what we'll see written into some of the songs on the album. This story also reminds me of the ballerina Misty Copeland, whose own career followed a similar trajectory as she became the first black principal ballet dancer at the American Ballet Theatre. And another Taylor Swift tie-in is that when Taylor was performing Lover on the American Music Awards, Misty Copeland performed alongside her. It's all tying together. Are we seeing it? The next book I picked was The Great Gatsby by F. Scott Fitzgerald, a novel many of us have read and if not were aware of. This book deals with power, class, money and the American dream and all that it can bring. These are all things I believe a showgirl will experience or become aware of or be around. Money, power, glory. This tells the story of a wealthy man, Jay Gatsby, who throws lavish parties that are the talk of the town, all with the hopes of capturing the attention of his long-lost love, Daisy. Set against the backdrop of the 1920s jazz age, this book looks at how all the success, power and money in the world can still not make some people happy when all you long for is to be with your person. Behind the glitz and glamour, what people really want is a connection with someone, and this is something that Taylor has sang about on many of her albums. In Peace, on Folklore, she sings about fearing that her celebrity is so big that she'll never be able to give her partner peace. And then we see it in Anti-Hero when she said the fame that she has makes her feel like a monster in every environment she's in because it's become bigger than she can manage. They say more money, more problems. But as someone who also needs money, I obviously chose this book because it showcases how success and money can never make someone truly happy. It can temporarily fix your issues, but as you see with most celebrities, it can't fix all the problems, and a lot of people become deeply unhappy. And on the surface, Gatsby may seem like he has it all, but deep down, he's longing for one thing that his money, his status, his power can't buy, and that's his one true love. It's kind of like artful deception, celebrity. When I was younger, I used to think it seemed glamorous, but the older I've gotten, the more I think it seems like a nightmare. The next book I picked is The Comeback by Ella Berman. This is another behind the curtain type look at success in Hollywood, and we follow a young up and coming actress that's on the cusp of her big break. She's about to become the new It Girl, play It Girl by Jade, until she doesn't. This story asks, how can your career, your success and your talent be derailed by a much more powerful, wealthy and influential man in the industry? Touching on themes of Me Too and reclaiming your voice and power, this book shines a light on the real person behind the headlines and rumours. As Taylor becomes more and more famous, she will ultimately become more and more kind of detached from the real world, especially in the general public's eyes. That's why celebrities need people to ground them, and whether you believe that or not, it's important to remember, no matter how much money she makes, how many Grammys she has, and how successful her tours are, she was still, and probably will be in the future, impacted by powerful men in her industry. We've seen this with the sale of a Masters, and more recently with that orange man in the White House, when he said, and I quote, "Has anyone noticed that since I said I hate Taylor Swift, she's no longer hot?" Sorry, Donald, but do you own a mirror? Have you looked in a mirror? First of all, you're about 100 years old, you're decrepit and orange, and you think your opinion matters. You look like you belong in the swamp, honey. The next book is Blue Sisters by Coco Mellors. When I spotted track 5, Eldest Daughter, first I thought this is going to be an emotionally destructive one. It is a track 5 after all, and it immediately also made me think of this book because it's a book that deals with siblings and sibling dynamic and relationships. The story follows 4 sisters who sadly become 3 when one of their sisters unexpectedly passes away, and when the parents decide that they're selling their childhood apartment, the sisters come together from where they're living and where the relationships kind of splintered and try to stop the sale. Each chapter focuses on a different sister, and we get their version of events and how this loss has impacted them. From addiction and infidelity, at the heart of the story is sisterhood and the bond that you have with your siblings, the highs and lows and also the pressures each sibling feels in trying to sort of play their role. For instance, the eldest sibling is expected to be the leader, but they may not naturally be a leader, but there's a pressure there. I love this book, and I particularly loved how it looked at sibling dynamics and how fraught they can be, and I do think we might get that sort of question of the relationship and family dynamics in this song. The next book and the final book is Talking at Night by Claire Delvery. Similar to the last book, this book's something that instantly came to mind when I spotted the song Ruin the Friendship. I imagine this song will focus on sort of friends to lovers, or being friends with someone and building a foundation that way, and then starting to get romantic feelings for that person. I could be wrong, but it's given that. And in Talking at Night, we follow 2 friends who've been close since they were teenagers. Through the highs and the lows, they've remained in each other's lives. One day, they realise that they may feel something more for each other than just platonic friendship. I've seen this book compared a lot to One Day. I have yet to read it, but it's on the shelf. She's over there. So if you were a fan of that book, I think maybe you'll enjoy this book. And it also comes highly recommended to me by my friend Susanna, so I will definitely be reading that along with you lot. So there's the book. books. There's 8 books that I think may touch on themes that we'll see in the album, and it's just exciting that we're getting new music, and we love a theme over here, so hopefully there's something there for you. If you want to do a bit more homework, extra credit if you will, here's a few films that I think you might also enjoy that touch on themes of showgirl and performance, and also behind the curtain and the true reality. The Last Showgirl by Gia Coppola, stars Pamela Anderson. Showgirls by Paul Verhoeven. Burlesque by Steve Anton, stars the one, the only, and the iconic mother of life, Cher. Chicago by Rob Marshall, one of my all-time favourites. Yes, I did have a hyperfixation on it when I was about 13. And finally, Honora by Sean Baker. This is less about the showgirl, but I think it's more about the realities of performance and real life. So let me know if you think these books sound interesting. What books would you pick to fit the theme? Are you excited for the album? If you made it this far, let me know what song you're most excited to hear on the album, and keep the discussion going in the comments below. As always, if you like this video, don't forget to like, comment and subscribe, because it really helps me and the channel out. Take care, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye!